Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, and warm greetings to all. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second and final day of the LIVAS International Seminar on Livable Space 2025. Give round of applause. We are honored to have you back with us. Let us continue the spirit of collaboration as we enter today's agenda. May today's discussion be just as enlightening and impactful as yesterday's. Before we begin, let me introduce myself. My name is Hadijah Ayu Claudia, and I'm honored to serve you as Master Ceremony for today's event. And we invite you to enjoy the morning refreshment that have been thoughtfully prepared for you today. Before we continue, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the honorable individual and delegations who have joined us for this important occasion. Your presence is what makes this conference truly global and impactful. The Honorable Dr. Insinyur Muhammad Iksak MT, Dean of Faculty of Civil Engineering and Planning, Universitas Trisakti. The Honorable Diploma Engineering I Gede Oka Sindu Pribadi, MSc MM, as Chairman of the Organizing Committee of LIVAS 2025. The Honorable Professor Alec Lechner, Monash University, Australia, Indonesia. The Honorable Mr. Bertram Wong B.Arch, Architect, California, USA. The Honorable Mr. Marcus Young Arch, Swinburne University of Technology, Australia. The Honorable team from Sinar Maslen, Besde City, in appreciation of your valued collaboration and support for LIVAS 2025. All keynote speakers and presenters, rectors and dean of college, universities, vocational institutions who serve as co-hosts of the LIVAS 2025, the organizing committee of the LIVAS 2025, and all participants who have contributed to this event. We would like also to express our sincere appreciation to our generous sponsors whose support made this event possible. PT Sinar Maslen, PT Propan Raya ICC, PT Artos Indo Utama, Bank Rakyat Indonesia, and Pramu Cipta Sehati. Thank you for your invaluable contribution in supporting knowledge and innovation in the field of civil engineering and planning. Before we officially begin, we would like to share a few guidelines to ensure that this event proceeds in an orderly and smooth manner. We kindly request for your cooperation in the following. First, please turn off your sound of mobile phones and other communication devices. Second, please participate in singing together when the national anthem are performed. And last, during the session, we kindly ask you to remain seated and refrain for entering and leaving the room. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now entering the second day of our international seminar. To guide us through this morning discussion, we are pleased to welcome our moderator, Architect Bima Dwi Pranata Putra, ST MRK IAI, a registered architect and urban designer, currently serving as design architect at PT Multipros, an adjunct lecturer at Trisakti University. And Mr. Bima is actively involved in healthcare facility projects and national urban planning initiative, and also serve the Indonesian Institute of Architects, or IAI. Please welcome Mr. Bima.
Well, excellent. Thank you very much, Maudi. I see some similar familiar face right now in front of us. So, friends, colleagues, students attending offline and online, thank you very much for being here with us today in Indonesia or elsewhere in the world. Welcome to second day of International Seminar is LIVAS 2025. My name is Bima, and I will be your moderator for today's session. So, this session of talks are enable us to showcase large amount of thoughts about how we tackle either philosophical or pragmatic issues around environmental ethics, ecological landscape, resources management, urban lifestyle, and why it is important for us to consider. And we must say, or at least I must say, intuitively speaking, from judging from my experience, since that classic sustainability concept is no longer considered powerful enough to covering how complex the environmental issues that we have to deal with now. So therefore, the regenerative livable environment came up as a sophisticated solution to it. Then we know as the time goes on, there is come several terminology under the umbrella of regenerative development. You can name it like biomimicry, or biophilics design, or neurotic architecture, water-sensitive urban design, blue-green economics, etc., etc. So, moving along with our session, I would like to invite each of speakers to come forward and have a seat with me. For our first speaker, we have here with us Professor Alex Lechner from Monash University, Australia, Indonesia. Please come join with me. Yeah. Okay. And for our second speakers, we have with us Mr. Bertram Wong on behalf of Technical Advisor, Urban Planning, Sinar Masland. Please welcome Mr. And we have our third presenter that actually has joined us on Zoom online overseas. Can we see from the Zoom online? Oh, perfect. So we have on our Zoom online our third speaker. Please welcome Mr. Marcus Young from Swinburne University of Technology, Australia. Hello, Mr. Marcus Young. Can you hear us well?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Welcome, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Being here. Hi.
Perfect. So, before we begin our presentation, please note that we have around 15 minutes of talks, and then we continue with some Q&A discussion afterwards. Okay. So, let us begin with the first presentation. As we know, most of design and development practice in modern area somehow are using the perspective of anthropocentric paradigm until the postmodernism and environmentalism came up with the idea that to design is not only about to please human senses at the present. It's about how we deal with the natural resources, sustainability. It's how we tackle the issues of the other species in terms of concerning biodiversity as a stakeholder in our public realm development. So, and that's what our first presentation is going to be about. Professor Alex actually was a landscape ecologist and professor that conducting research and teaching on the application of interdisciplinary approaches to urban sustainability, environmental science, and biodiversity conservation for over a decade, which has led him to rank among the top 2% scientists worldwide in ecology in environmental science in Elsevier Stanford list. And he has undertaken research across the world from Oceania to Southeast Asia and Europe. and has a successful track record of applying landscape ecology to broad range of cross-cutting areas. So let's give a round of applause for Professor Alex, please.
Should I stand or? Okay, I'll sit down. It'll be easy. So thank you so much, Pak Bima, and thank you, Pak Oki and Bu Retno as well, and thank you to the conference organisers and Cinemas Land as well. It's a real pleasure to be presenting here. So I think I have some slides to present to. Oh yes, fantastic. So hopefully everyone can see the slide. So I know I've got 15 minutes and it's very tough to stick to 15 minutes, so I'll try my best. So I'm very much taking, the positivist perspective around, as a landscape ecologist, a quantitative scientist, around how can we integrate landscape ecology principles into our urban designs, particularly in Indonesia, particularly in Southeast Asia with its specific kind of tropical ecosystems, its cultural challenges and specific types of urban development. Next slide. So what we have, I think, at the moment, in terms of recognition of the importance of biodiversity in Indonesia and the region, is a recognition of the really important ecosystem services that are provided by urban nature. So this is our very starting point. So you can see this in the Green Building Council of Indonesia, recognizing biodiversity makes an important contribution to reducing urban heat island, to addressing urban microclimate. And also there's a recognition, the important ecosystem service of flood prevention, which is also a critical issue across Indonesia. So globally, I think around half of global GDP is generated from industries dependent on ecosystem services, not just in the urban areas. And next, click next. So while there, stay there. So while there are a host of important ecosystem services that we all recognise as important, such as the urban heat island mitigation, underpinning all of these ecosystem services are the supporting services, which is basically the biodiversity that provides these services and the quality and the state of that biodiversity and all the ecological processes and so forth that underpin the biodiversity. And this is what I'm going to talk about today, the importance of protecting that biodiversity, one, from a human perspective, in terms of important ecosystem services, all the great benefits that we've recognised, but two, from the perspective of biodiversity itself, that as Pak Bima mentioned, we now have a requirement to think about the non-humans in our urban environments. And I think this is something where it's still an emerging area for Indonesia. Next slide. So the amazing thing and important thing to recognise being in Indonesia is that Indonesia is one of the 30 or more global biodiversity hotspots. So and Southeast Asia in general is one of the most important places for biodiversity globally. So what this means is we've got more species than anywhere else in the world. We've got unique species not found anywhere else in the world. So it's really critical that we, not only when we're extracting resources, but also when we're building our urban areas, that we build with nature in mind. Next. And here, this is just, as you can see, nearly the whole of Indonesia is highlighted in terms of it being a critical area for biodiversity. And also it's a critical area in terms of biodiversity being lost. And one thing else, where we build our cities tend to be quite a unique type of ecosystem. So our urban ecosystems are very different to our ecosystems in the heart of Borneo. So the urban ecosystems harbour unique species not found anywhere else in the world. So as well as these urban ecosystem services, you know, it's very important for us to look at how can we protect these unique urban species? How can we coexist with them? Next slide. So this is from some of the work that I've done in Malaysia previously. So I think Malaysia's interesting because of the similarity, and what this slide shows are the range of species found in and around Greater KL in Malaysia. So if we think about that as analogous to Jakarta, that we don't see similar kinds of diversity existing so close to Jakarta and to many of our large cities. So we have large species like tapir, we have macaques. Macaques are found in most parks. Unfortunately, it seems only in Bali we find macaques in Indonesia. We know in northern Jakarta there are some macaques. So there's a range of, you know, like wild boar, sun bear, and so forth, that people are having this opportunity to interact with, and also these species are being protected within the urban environments. Next slide. So within our urban environments, there's a range of urban ecosystems which we can promote, from large urban forests. I wouldn't say there are many in Greater Jakarta, to street trees, to pocket parks, smaller parks. I can see there are a lot of green parks, especially associated with our master plan development, and, you know, rivers, ponds, green walls and roofs and so forth. So there's a range of features that we can promote when building our cities. Next slide. And so these features range from, we have to think about terrestrial features and aquatic features. From very small, we need to think about biodiversity for the very small locations and the very small species. On the left is an insect hotel. So that's a hotel from the UK promoting insects. I'm not sure if Indonesia's ready for that yet, but this is where what other cities are thinking when they're thinking about biodiversity in urban areas. And then we have things such as house gardens, for example, which I think Indonesia's been successful in promoting. And of course, you know, in the tropics, water, aquatic systems, and urban areas are really need to be integrated and are really critically important. And things such as ponds and constructed wetlands, we can see at the Breeze here, they've been really working on the pond for quite some time, try to get that working well. So we need to think about all these features, and then we need to think about the connection between all these features in the landscape and in the catchment. So the hydrological system and the terrestrial system, the ecological processes there. Next slide. And the other element, we need to think about the habitat quality. So it's not just the presence of a green space. We need to think about, from the biodiversity perspective, we need to think about the diversity, the complexity of the species in these locations. And perhaps this is something that a lot of urban residents perhaps are not ready for, and there might need to be some kind of perspective around, you know, how we learn to live with nature. Maybe there are areas of very thick, complex nature with buffer zones of much more friendly, multifunctional landscapes. And there needs to be a focus on indigenous species, not the latest fashionable architectural species. But I understand why that's the case. Next slide. So now I'm going to talk about designing cities for biodiversity. So first, the way we usually think about the complexity of nature in urban areas is through a landscape ecology perspective, where we have patches of green spaces that can range from the insect hotel size to large urban forests. We have areas that connect those patches, wildlife corridors, aquatic corridors, riparian areas, and then we have a matrix, which is the hostile non-habitat. So we need different kind of management perspectives if we're thinking about the patches, the connectors, the corridors, and the urban matrix. How can we make that all more wildlife friendly? Next slide. So one of the key challenges in the urban environment is this idea that, there was forest here once. It would have been a long time ago, I'm guessing 1,000 or more years ago, but these contiguous forests are being broken up into much smaller patches. And this is problematic because the populations are smaller, it's harder for species to persist. And what we also have is this issue of roads not allowing movement between patches, and there's less core area, there's less, more pristine, more natural landscapes surrounded by the much more highly modified edge habitat. Next slide. So one of the things we really want when we think about that link between the urban matrix and our patches is we think about, we have these patches which are habitat for biodiversity. We need to think about how species can move through the matrix. We need to promote this movement, and we see across the world, we'll see there'll be wildlife corridors being built in urban areas, especially all across Europe, thinking about how different species move and inhabit the matrix. Next. And we think about creating stepping stones like corridors, like roadside trees. Next. We need to think about how our roads, we can stop roads from being barriers. We need to think about how we can make our housing areas more friendly to biodiversity. Next. So one of the huge, really important areas, and if you were lucky enough, you would have seen Resmi, my PhD student, had a poster up yesterday. She's doing some fantastic work on wildlife corridors. So one of the really key ways in which we're trying, ecologists are trying to address this challenge is through encouraging movement across the landscape, which can offset the impact of habitat loss and fragmentation. Next slide. We also need to think about our roads. How do we make our roads more friendly to wildlife so that wildlife aren't being hit by roads, but hit by vehicles, but also wildlife will avoid vehicles? How can we build fences, we can elevate roads, we can put underpasses, and this is the type of thing we see across the world. Next. And we need to think about the edge. So what we know is it's at the edge of the patches where we see all the negative impacts on the biodiversity in the remnant wildlife areas. Next. I can see we have to think about the different kinds of species that we have to consider, like listed and threatened species, species of... Yes, no worries. Next. So if we think about the principles, it's quite difficult to know what the values, the quantities we need to use, but we can think what's better and what's worse. So we want larger patches than smaller patches. We want patches that are more closely, less isolated. We want patches that are more connected than disconnected patches. And we want more compact patches, not these sinuous patches. And finally, we want more patches with greater diversity and buffer zones. Next. And we need to think about how we connect these patches, making it friendly in terms of redundancy in our corridors and much wider wildlife corridors. Next. And we need to think about this whole, system of corridors and patches and edges and so forth within this complex landscape. Next. And then finally, we need to go back and integrate our wildlife-friendly environments with our environments promoting ecosystem services, addressing things like urban heat island and flooding and so forth. And final slide, you can relax. Next. Oh, sorry. And we need to think about the Indonesian challenges. So how can we educate people to be more happy to live in environments with wildlife? And final slide, next. So what we need to do is think about designing for urban nature. We need to embed ecological principles into urban design. Landscape ecology principles can reveal how spatial structures shape ecological processes and support biodiversity. We need to think about the urban nature connections, how urbanization and loss of nature are driving disconnections from nature. And there's this key concept known as nature deficit disorder or extinction of experience. And finally, we need to think locally and plan systematically and integrate some of these existing knowledge and quantifications and methods for understanding and modeling nature. And finally, I just wanted to say, we have an event on Wednesday. People are welcome to attend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Alex. What a marvelous presentation from Professor Alex, who learned that is it important for us as a designer or a researcher in terms of built environmental context. It is important for us to consider the biodiversity as one of the important aspects to include in our works. So yeah, actually we are here in Indonesia are still seldom to realizing that biodiversity was the important aspects practical design until from the IKN competition. We know Sivarani Sofian, they came with the idea of how to including the other species to mix it well in our design. So they thinking about how the orangutan movement is important to us to think in context of transportation in the human level area, etc., etc. So, perfect. Now we're segueing into our second presentation. We will hear some perspective of how planning practices are done and why it is important for us to not only seeing the planning process as in business as usual, but also how to enhancing more positive value to the context of the environment. Specifically in urban lifestyle and urban space in general. We have Mr. Bertram Wong here with us, a licensed California architect with over 3 decades of experience in wide range in built environment practices such as integrated resort and urban destination, infrastructure development, property development and project management, cultural heritage resource assessment, and eco and cultural development, and so on. So please, Mr. Wong, for the next 15 minutes, let's give a warm applause to Mr. Bertram.
Thank you. Are the slides okay? All right, we can go ahead and start. So I think first I'd like to say from yesterday's event, for those of you who attended, for me it was quite inspiring because almost everything that I'm going to talk about today was already touched upon yesterday. So meaning either we're all on the right track or we're all on the wrong track. But I think that basically it comes back down to very fundamentals about urban design, urban planning, and things like that, that I think as a practitioner and a development company, hopefully we're going in the right direction. So my talk today is about urban lifestyle and urban space. Next. Okay, so basically a bit about myself. The first half of my life, I grew up in Southern California. So I lived probably the most suburban lifestyle there is in the world. From 16 years old, I was driving myself, and purely dependent on car mobility for everything, right? When I started to work, it took me 1 hour to drive to work every day. And if you could see from the pictures on the left-hand side, you know, my view for 2 hours and 3 hours a day was looking at the back of another car and looking at highway overpasses and things like that, right? Then about 30 plus years ago, I moved to Singapore. And I've lived in Singapore and Hong Kong and now BSD City. And for all of my time in Singapore and Hong Kong, I never owned a car, I never even drove a car, right? But I lived a completely independent life without the need of a car, right? I commuted usually 15 to 30 minutes depending, but it was relaxing because I could read, I could do other things. I didn't have to concentrate on the road and expend my energy, right? So I had more time for my own life, right? Whether it's working or doing things on my own, right? So you can see the photos from the bottom on the right. I live in a high-rise apartment, but then I have public transportation at my disposal, whether it's bus or MRT, and then I have parks and I have urban spaces to entertain myself. Next. Okay, so my talk will be about, cover these things, a little bit about some of the urban lifestyle and principles that we try and follow. A couple of case studies from Singapore just to show that there are things around this region that are very successful. And then our BSD experience, you know, some of the things that we're actually going to be experiencing firsthand today, this afternoon. Okay, next. Okay, so I like this quote, people's greatest joy is other people. And I'm not sure exactly who that comes from, but some people say it's from Aristotle or someone way back in time. But a lot of most of these photos in this presentation are my own personal photos taken over the years. And you can see this quote holds true everywhere in the world. In Italy, in Venice Beach in California, in the park in Jakarta, in Las Ramblas in Spain, right? Next. Okay, so the renowned author Jane Jacobs, through her book, Death and Life of Great American Cities, has a lot of points that we tend to follow as urban planners and architects, right? Looking to create density, right? I'm pointing to the yellow areas, mixed use, right? Old buildings. Old buildings, I think, also means basically heritage, whether it's cultural or natural heritage, right? Short blocks, making it more walkable. And the last one in the bottom on the left is eyes on the street, right? I mean, a principle that everybody talks about security. We need to be safe. The best way to keep a place safe is to keep people on the street and looking at the street, right? Next. Okay, so one of the points from Jane Jacobs is that streets and sidewalks, the main public spaces of the city, are the most vital organs, right? And if you look at these examples from Europe as well as Asia, you can see what a quality of life you would have from a street like this, right? And the question is, why can't we do this in Indonesia? Why can't we create streets like this and create the quality of life for everybody on an everyday basis, right? And the second point at the bottom, eyes upon the street. The diagram on the right shows how everybody looks down to the street, keeps it safe, right? Next. And then the other issue is about people movement, right? We need to move people around the city, right? In and out of the city, right? But what's the best way to do that? And this famous poster from Munster City Planning Office shows on the left, we have cars for transporting the same amount of people, how much space it actually takes up compared to a bus or people riding bicycle, or the cluster in the front is just people walking, right? So if you can imagine, all of that space dedicated to cars could be dedicated for urban people space, not urban car space, right? Can you imagine what a change of the quality of life we would have? And then the quote on the right is something I really like. It's a developed country is not a place where the poor have cars, it's where the rich ride public transportation, from the former mayor of Bogota, Colombia, right? So I think these are points that, you know, we try to promote in what we're doing, and sometimes with success, sometimes hitting brick walls. Next. Okay, and then this diagram kind of shows the combination of physical space requirement and resultant carbon footprint, right? So we're targeting the ones in the red boxes, right? Train, tram, bus. You can see the green, which is the footprint of the area, the land it takes up to transport people, compared to the carbon footprint, which is the the black balloon on the top, right? And at the far right, the optimum, walking and biking, right? Completely zero footprint of carbon. Next. And then when you look at from the economic perspective, right? Urban development is about half the cost on a yearly operating basis as well as suburban development, right? So there's a lot of arguments all around for a more urban lifestyle compared to a suburban. Next. And this is the last one about the principles, is that it's called the village effect, right? And by Suzanne Pinker, a psychologist and author, right? So she did this study and looked at what contributed to longevity in places around the world, right? And if you look at the diagram on the left, staying alive, the red area at the top, it says social integration and close relationships, right? So the village effect is the fact that people interact with other people on a daily basis, right? That's the thing that keeps us alive the longest, right? Of course, the yellow part, exercise, reduction of hypertension, all those kind of things, which are contributed or which are a result of walking and exercising, right? So the combination of the village effect has, multiple impacts, right? Next. Okay, so we can see that the importance of urban space in the streets, the pedestrian ways, the plazas, the parks. From all of these pictures here, you can see that basically they cover everything, all those points that I just really went over, right? They go down to the people watching. People's greatest joy is other people, right? Eyes on the street, et cetera, right? Next. Okay, but then I come to Indonesia and I hear this so often. Indonesians don't like to walk, right? So is that true or not true, right? I think the question is it Indonesians don't like to walk in Indonesia? Because if you look at the slide on the lower left, this is Orchard Road in Singapore. And if I walk down Orchard Road in Singapore, the language I hear most is Bahasa Indonesia, right? So how can you tell me Indonesians don't like to walk? The other slides are car-free day in Jakarta, right? And you see tons of people out there walking. Why? Because it's cool, it's safe, it's protected, it's a social event, there's people there, right? So I think the answer to when anybody says Indonesians don't like to walk, my answer is because they don't have the suitable environment now in Indonesia, right? So that's our job. We need to create the suitable environment. Next. Okay, so just touch upon a couple of case studies in Singapore. So on the bottom left, you can see it says Clementi Town Center in the yellow. And on the upper right, it says Punggol Digital District and Punggol Waterway. So these are two areas that are interesting to me. I live in Singapore next to Clementi Town Center, so it's one of my regular hangout places, right? This is a HDB development from the 1970s, but still valid today and ever evolving, right? And in the north, a newer district started about 10, 15 years ago, which is a new development on the closest edge to Malaysia, which is developed along a waterway, a new town. Next. Okay, so basically, this is all I'm going to show you about it, but the left side is the Clementi Town Center, and you can see it's developed around a pedestrian area. The pedestrian area is mixed use. It's full of people. People don't necessarily hang out in the middle of the pedestrian way during the mid of the day, but in the evening and the afternoon when the sun goes down, they come out. So of course we know in this part of the world, Pasar Malam is part of the lifestyle, right? Over the years, they've added density to it. The MRT comes there, the bus terminal comes there, and further development expands around it. The right-hand side is the Punggol Waterway, right? And can you imagine when I show this to people in the United States and I say, this is public housing in Singapore. Everybody looks at me like, are you crazy? This is like luxury housing, right? Can you imagine this is public housing in Singapore developed along the waterway? urban areas to walk, bicycle, right? And then the bottom part is the Punggol Digital District, right? Which is the kind of commercial center around there. So they have a mixed use, there's a university there, the MRT goes there.
You have 5 more minutes left.
Yeah,
sir.
it's okay. We'll take an extra minute or two. We have the development, which is the MRT coming there. We have urban plazas, we have urban space. So you can see the real importance of urban space in making a quality of life. Next. Okay, so now BSD City, what's our experience, right? So our goal, the vision, is to have a city designed for people, of course, to be comprehensive, to live, learn, work, play. When BSD City started 40 years ago, it was basically a bedroom suburb, right? Everybody commuted every day to Jakarta, right? Still a lot of people commute, but we're making an effort to make it more comprehensive and inclusive and integrated as much as possible, right? So you can see all of the things we're trying to bring into BSD City. Next. Okay, and the BSD vision from an urban design perspective is as this, like, you know, same thing that Jane Jacobs and some of the principles I talked about, right? We're looking to make it mixed use urban development. We're looking to add density, right? We're looking for lifestyle products and spatial quality, right? We have comprehensive education. You can see outside there's a big seminar for a new school coming in, right? We have our BSD Link, which is our integrated bus service, right? We have urban spaces. This is the Cubic we'll be visiting. And then we have pedestrian-friendly walkways. And a whole nother topic, which I won't touch upon, is the issue of smart city, how we're trying to integrate technology to further enhance the city. Next. So I'll just briefly go over 4 areas that we'll be visiting on the tour afterwards. First is the Cubic. Second is the Green Office Park. Third is our Green Connector, which is our Greenbelt area. And the last is our Eco-Urban Village, Eco-Urban Park. Next. Okay, so the Cubic is about a 17-hectare site. It's kind of a temporary mixed-use development, but heavily on commercial. We have a 1-hectare urban plaza there, about 2 stories in volume. Next. And I think the great thing about this is, what does it have? It has enclosure, it has scale to the space, it has hard and soft space, it has places to gather of different characteristics, places for activities, places to observe people, places to be observed, right? All those things that the principles that we talked about earlier we're looking at, right? It doesn't have, though, a permanent population. It doesn't have housing. You know, it doesn't have office building, right? I think those are not there because this is more of a temporary facility, right? And it doesn't have yet mature shaded trees. Next. Oops, back one. But you can see there's a whole bunch of activities that take place there, right? From a daily basis, gatherings of groups, small individuals in clusters, right? Next. So this one, if we get there in the late afternoon, you can see it more populated. If you're in the middle of the day because of the heat, of course, it's probably less populated. Okay, now our Green Office Park, which we're in right now, is about 30 hectares of site, our mixed-use development. It's probably our most successful mixed-use development so far, right? But still a lot to be learned, a lot to evolve in the future, right? It includes Sinarmas Land Plaza. It includes Unilever's headquarters for Indonesia, includes Traveloka campus. Monash University is also here. We have office space. We have the breeze. We have cinema. We have our green connector along the back edge of the river. And it connects to the residential areas on the lower left-hand corner, which is in the CBD. So we have apartments there. And then it connects to our special economic zone in the south. Next. So you could see one of the things is we provided adequate walkways. Okay, that's one thing. But the other one, and maybe more important, is we provided an abundance of shade trees, right? To keep the temperature down to an acceptable level. We bring the public transportation into there. We have density there. Next. Maybe when you arrived this morning, you could have seen a lot of people walking around because there's a lot of people who come out in the early mornings just for exercise. We have the breeze. The breeze is an open air area that has a lot of public space. It has urban space. It has water bodies for evaporative cooling. It has covered canopies. Next. And then we have some of our buildings with courtyards, and the courtyards are covered over to protect from the sun as well as from the rain. Next. Okay, adjacent to that, which Professor Alex said is under construction now, we have our Greenbelt area. The Greenbelt area connects 8.6 kilometers along BSD, right? And we have a 30-meter right-of-way along the river that's set back by the government. And we've transformed that into the green connector, which will be public urban green space for the whole of BSD City. Next. Okay, so this is the earliest part of it, down in the Avani residential area. Next. Okay, and this is the area that we're starting to transform now. We will walk through this area. This area goes through our water treatment plant, so it has to have some security. So hence we made this kind of bridge structure, but we tried to keep the vegetation around there. Next. So for us, it was important, like Professor Alex talks about, preserving natural vegetation. This area is underneath the toll road, okay? This area was completely reduced to vegetation because of development, but then they've put it back. Next. Get in there, don't worry.
Okay.
Next. Okay, and north of the Breeze area, we have an area which the Greenbelt extends to, which we tried to follow the principles that Professor Alex talked about, is like going through resource evaluation before we develop. Next. So the area, if you could see the pictures on the right, had a lot of vegetation existing. Wasn't primary rainforest by any means, but it was regenerated over the years from development. So what we did in this is we did some mapping of it first. We mapped out all the trees, anything over 30 centimeters, right? And then we did our alignment of our road. We put the center line of it. And our team, some of them are here today, we walked through the site many times, and we dedicated and said which trees to save, which trees we need to take down, right? Next. And then you can see the results today. This is you know, about 90% complete, right? So we've preserved as much of the trees as we can, and then the development looks pretty finished when it's done already. Next. Okay, and then we have the northern part of this area, we have a waterway that comes out. And this waterway over the years has kind of moved around and found its natural way. And now basically we're trying to regularize it to a certain extent and stabilize it. Next. So what we're doing in this case, we're trying to use the infrastructure which is critical to the development, right? We have to follow government regulation of zero delta, et cetera. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to use the pragmatic engineering, but turn it poetic and try and make it something that enhances the quality of life. Next. So this is what we will see as the so-called exclamation mark of the Greenbelt waterway along the future. So we think of this as Indonesia's longest natureway in the city, right? Can you imagine the city contrast of the built environment together with the natural environment? Next. Okay, and the last thing I'll talk about, so maybe 2 minutes more. On the far left over here, West BSD, we have an area which we call our eco-urban village. Right, this is a new development. So BSD City is 8 kilometers north to south, 12 kilometers east to west. Next. Okay, so we're trying to transform from a car priority city into a pedestrian inclusive with pedestrian priority zones, okay? And we know that's not gonna happen overnight. It's gonna be a long process. But what we need to do is we need to transform from the first box on the bottom left, which is, you know, 95, maybe it could be 99% private vehicle transportation oriented, which includes cars as well as motorcycles, into hopefully maybe our target is 50-50, right? And then we get in the center there where we maybe have about 20% private, walking, right? But we need to go first to a stage of park and walk, where people come to an area, park, and walk around. and then hopefully add density to it. Next. So this area covers about 100 hectares, right? And you can see we have a natural waterway that comes through here, part of our drainage infrastructure. And within that, we have idea is to make a real urban city, a real urban development with a number of smaller plazas in between, where the streets and the parks and the plazas are the city's most vital organs, right? We're not going to be selling apartments with 101 activities within the apartment. We're going to selling your apartment has 101 activities in the streets, right? Everything is at your doorstep, right? Next. So this is just a axonometric view of it, and you can see the purple areas are the actual amenities, the key amenity features for the whole district. Next. And then this is kind of like the view of what we hope the first phase will be like, how apartments will fit in there, how you see small urban plazas next to the apartments, and then we see the heart of the district, which is the eco-urban park. Next. And then we like to say, in this case, life on your doorstep. Next. So basically, we started off on the left with just making a normal drain, and we've slowly transformed to the right. Next. And so this is the process of going through and redeveloping the waterway into a real eco-urban park. Next. And this is the image of it. Next. And you can see how we would have the waterway with the naturalized park and then the developments surrounding it. And on the right-hand side, where the canopy comes out, is East Vara. So we'll be able to walk through this area today, hoping weather permits. Next. And as an area that manages flood control, so there might be occasions where the water level comes up to something like this. Next. And this is the area under construction today, so we're already in the process. You can see how it's become much more naturalized from the first image. Next. And just some other views. So we have a 1 kilometer north-south, and then another extension to the right, about 500 meters. So you can imagine a 1.5 kilometer park at your doorstep. Next. Just some other views of it. Next. So in summary, you know, we're basically evolving to a sustainable, tropical, pedestrian inclusive, urban integrated, mixed-use smart city. And the slides on the top are kind of what we have today, and the slides at the bottom are what we hope to be able to accomplish in the future. Next. Last slide. So basically, we just like to propose that, you know, as an urban lifestyle for Indonesia, that it's a kind of sustainable choice for a better quality of life. And we hope that maybe a lot more of the developments around can look towards that direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bertrand. So there is a very salient point I wanted to highlight from your presentation is in the context of transportation planning, right? Sometimes we forget to design in detail in human scale in terms of planning transportation. That walkability aspect is one of the most important aspects to make our public realm, our urban design products are more livable. So from the presentation, we learned some precedents in the BSD city that which you can experience it by yourself at our city tour session on the afternoon. Now, segueing into our third presentation, after we hear the thoughts from the perspective of academics and practitioners, now we are about to hear some fascinating presentation from the perspective of person who did practice as well as academics regarding of regenerative livable development, Mr. Marcus Young. He was founder and managing director of Express Architecture and Urban Design, an award-winning design research practice which focused on urban diversity, social as well as environmental responsiveness, and has been widely published internationally. In parallel to practicing, he regularly conducts research, lectures, and workshops at several universities in Europe and Australia. So, hello, Mr. Young. Can you hear us? Can you hear us well, Mr. Young?
Yes, I can hear you well. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah?
Yeah. So please, Mr. Marcus Young, for the next 15 minutes, let's give applause.
Thank you for inviting me to the committee. It's a pleasure. So my welcome comes out of very cold Melbourne. We've got winter here. I will be sharing my screen with you. Can you see that?
We cannot see it yet. Please,
you can't, sorry. I'll do it again.
Okay. Okay, it's there, Mr. Young. We can see your presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. I'm an academic, but I'm also a practitioner, an architect, an urbanist, and I'm the course director in the School of Design and Architecture at Swinburne University in Melbourne. And my talk is called Through the Lens of Water. So the presentation will now focus on the way in which we thinking about water in different ways and at different scales, and how they can provide a framework for urban design and architecture in shaping our future cities. Water as a natural resource presents some of the most difficult, challenging issues in urban developments globally. Water affects every aspect of our lives. It is central to the functioning of our cities, as well as an integral part of the quality of urban realms. The water research activities aim to develop projects based on the premise that there are direct and implicit relationships between multiple facets of water and city densities, building typologies, green space provision, urban heat management, and city livability. This research conceptualized the diverse elements in an interconnected and interdependent manner. It identifies key challenges in the transformation of our cities into livable, resilient, and productive environments, and provides a framework in which design can both inform and be inflected by the science inherent in ecosystem services. We've identified 3 themes within the research that, while interconnected and interrelated, can be parceled out to incite productive and useful discussions in direct ongoing research. These 3 themes are greening the city, feeding the city, and building the city. And I'm using this as an occasion to expose the audience to speculations on contemporary architecture and urbanism related to these themes across multiple scala considerations, from the built form to territory. Now, greening the city supports amenity and ecosystem services by providing landscape connectivity, urban forests, enhancing biodiversity, and improving water quality. This is an example of an engagement for the city of Kunshan. For those who don't know, Kunshan, it's in the Yangtze River Delta in China, Shanghai. It's its capital city there. It's a region which is defined morphologically as being formed by the waterways, man-made waterways at large. Now, in this first slide, we designed a new urban precinct with a large wetland park to the left as a new public realm. Now, next to its primary function to purify the water, the park incorporates a range of programs for passive and active recreational use. The second theme, Feeding the City, develops urban food networks, ecosystems, and technologies to support agricultural production, hydroponics, aquaponics, and a range of food production strategies to provide food security. This is a speculative example envisioning urban food production in combination with housing in one of Melbourne's central suburbs. And this other example shows vertical food production organized in towers, aquaponic systems. This was a concept we developed for the city of Kunjang through a design research studio at territorial scale. Now, building this city supports sustainable built form to include the development of housing, commercial and institutional buildings and typologies, as well as the provision of transport and service infrastructure. This diagram combines built form as an urban park as one sustainable water management system. Green roofs and facades and a biofiltration system are complemented with a wetland park to produce fresh water in the Kuchan Studio 2. Now, this other example, this is a project which builds or is a built form which addresses the dynamics of the waters and accommodates to these different conditions or water levels. This other first project here, the Melbourne section, was a project where we investigated future scenarios of sustainable growth at territorial scale. It challenges the existing urban morphology of sprawl. Melbourne is a sprawling city across a territory of 60 kilometers, and it draws a section for the different rings of urban development. In this project, we produced a series of analysis mappings, in this example, tangible factors such as agricultural green zones and the water sewage system of the city, but also mappings on invisible factors which drive urban settlement patterns to gain a depth and holistic knowledge about Melbourne's current built form. Here at the top, this is the education system is a big driver for property prices in our city. At the bottom, employment destinations. This other map is showing the current condition of Melbourne's overall water management and supply system. To the northwest, the freshwater reservoirs who supply the city with drinking water. That system is depleting because of climate change. And the water from the sewage system is released into the Bay of Melbourne, and so there's a massive efforts undertaken to recycle water, so taking it out of the bay again to refeed it back into the water catchment system. So this is a very problematic condition. This very speculative diagram addresses what I just described. It identifies Lilydale as Melbourne's new water treatment plant and water distribution center. Now, the overall vision reimagines these 7 suburbs as an interrelated network, drawing advantages of its natural resources, but also of the human expertise and skills and knowledges. I'm showing another few slides about this project, which had a number of architectural propositions based on that vision. So the farming land is put under massive pressure. That's what this diagram is illustrating. For urban development, and it's important that in our future considerations in urban planning, food production can be organized closer to urban centers, closer to the consumers. This was a case study suburb within that vision, with an architectural response underneath. We identified this is Richmond, a suburb in Melbourne, who was identified as being ideal for retrofitting and converting the suburb in a food production hub. The architectural project, it's a mixed-use project which integrates housing that showcases at larger scale food production, taking advantage of the full water cycle of the river and of the infrastructure, the train for the distribution within the urban core areas. This second case study in Kunshan, where we were commissioned by the central government as part of the Sponge City program in China. So these were real-time projects examining new typologies and form for that third-tier city. Now, this studio focused on an urban precinct, dotted in green, which is in association with the high-speed train line, and at large occupied by rice production. Now, the projects evolved for 4 different strategies. To the right, the master plan proposal for the site. In pink, a knowledge production corridor at the eastern side, then denser urban form, mixed use in yellow at the center, and a food production corridor in association with the high-speed line. That's the diagonal which transects the site. And the driver to this master plan came through the water analysis. We treated that huge site as an inner polder, so to protect basically the site from the polluted outer waters and to create various loops of wetland systems based on the existing canal structure in the found condition. Now, around these wetlands, we imagined new urban development communities which were which received their identities for these particular geometries of these wetlands, and envisioned as well a sustainable inner transportation system to connect those new communities via water transportation. These are examples of these neighborhoods, how they could potentially look in terms of urban form. A part of that project was this strategy. That was the strategy number 3, the vertical food production, which we've identified as key for the development, future development. So we could demonstrate that while encapsulating the horizontal existing food production into 44 towers, and that would free the land for development while maintaining workplaces, and could produce 21% of the whole region requirement for food and fresh vegetables. These are the food production towers, which we developed in greatest details together with our engineers. A second site, which is north of the one I've just presented to you, sits at the edge in the inner core of the old part of Kunshan. The site is bounded by a polder, and which is here to maintain again separation between the polluted outer canals and the inner waters in the old part of Kunshan. At the bottom, these 2 sites. This is a strategic link to sites of relevance within the old city. Here at the forefront, our proposal already, a large new public wetland park imagined for the western compound of the site, and to the east, mixed-use developments formed by particular sustainable architectures. So this is the project, consisted of 4 distinct concepts: the wetland park to the left, porous courtyard buildings to the right. Then we had an urban edge which protected the site against a highly trafficked road on the northern side, and a dynamic waterfront responding to these different levels of waters. The wetland park, which is organized in a terraced manner and where water flows in gravity through that terrace system while being purified. Citizens could also engage and enjoy in a playful way with different water features.
You have 2 more minutes left, Mr. Young.
Sorry?
I beg your pardon, we have 2 more minutes.
Yeah. This is the northern edge, demonstrating an integrated position of architecture and open space form. The building captures water from its roofs. It's being purified and by a filtration system, that water made available again to the built form for cooling, but also to irrigate the landscape, and excess water then being pumped through the wetland park. These are some examples of these dynamic edge conditions, particular buildings which operate with ground floors at different levels. And here the full project. Now these projects, they all involve through different engagements in different multidisciplinary constellations, with industry partners, but with governments involved from local to federal government level. These projects, this is what the Melbourne section is a project where we collaborated with the Future Cities Laboratory in Singapore. These projects in China with students from Monash University, the Corporate Research Center for Water Sensitive Cities, and the Planning Bureau. Yeah, thank you.
Very well, thank you very much, Mr. Yang. So, from Mr. Yang's presentation, we learned that at least he has 3 approaches or 3 methods to designing areas. The first one is greening the city. It is about how we focused on the solid void composition in terms of Kevin Lynch's aspects of designing cities. The second one is feeding the city. It is about how we provide the system to make sure the city can run well, like food, the energy, how the natural resources are managed well, etc. And the last one is building the city. It is about how we focused on the building intensity, land use, urban morphology, and the skyline of the cities. And from the projects that Mr. Yang conducted, we learned that from the point, one of I want to highlight is he is promoting the urban farming as an approach in his projects, which makes it more salient as a salient point to explain the difference between the sustainability and the regenerative development. While in sustainability, we talk about how we preserve something, but in regenerative development, we do further than that. It's about how we producing our system to live the city itself. It's about how we producing the energy to consume by the system of the city itself. So, such a pleasure listening to you all, for all speakers. It really is a privilege for us to hear some insightful presentation from you. So now it's time to invite your participation. If you have some questions for the speakers, please raise your hand, identify yourself and who your questions are addressed to. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to thank you for the all speakers. It's a very nice presentation. To learn from me, yeah, I'm Aswin from Bali. Yeah, uh, why is this is interesting because you talk about designing cities in our condition now when it's urbanization and then vulnerability of climate change. My question goes to all of three speakers about replicability and scalability. When you see that other cities in Indonesia, which is a very diversity, very different social, economy, and also culture context, and even special context, has very big difference. I saw that's like base the model are very great, yeah, maybe for the new developments. And also you said about how important biodiversity, yeah, to put the ecology landscape. And then the last one, Prof. Marcos said that about the water is not just only resources, but also element of the designing city. But how? What is the key strategies for us? Yeah, like me in Bali, when it's tourism, and the land is not belong of state. How what we can do? How we start it? Yeah, what the strategy for us? I'm sorry that question goes based on other cities. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, maybe we can start from Professor Alex to answer the question, please.
Thank you. So I'm not a planner, I'm a landscape ecologist, so there are challenges that I'm unaware of, but I think from the challenge that you're talking about, from the biodiversity perspective, I would look at the challenge around human-nature connections. I would look at the challenge around people appreciating nature, and I think Indonesia has a challenge, unlike maybe other parts like perhaps Singapore, where you do have these very natural forests integrated, into that urban environment, and it's kind of a gradient, isn't it? So I think that challenge around, the perceptions of nature, I think is something that needs to be addressed. But like you said, the Indonesian cities are very different. They're different cultures, and I think Bali might be an example of where maybe nature in the city is perhaps more accepted, and macaques are a classic one. I've asked my students, why are there no macaques in Jakarta? And I think it's because no one likes macaques. But if you go to Kuala Lumpur, every park will have a local macaque population in a really, 9 million urban sized metropolitan area. And Bali also has this element of, perhaps where nature is allowed to thrive in cities a little bit more, while maybe in Jakarta people are still very much, we need to control nature, we need to mow all the lawns, we're very worried about insects, and there are issues, I think, as well, like dengue and things like that need to be addressed. So from my biodiversity perspective, I think more understanding around that, more education around that, and more thinking about what do people actually want, what level of biodiversity. And just a final point, I think for Indonesia, still imagine bringing biodiversity back into the cities, I think it's still a challenge. But if you think about other parts of the world, in Europe, they're bringing wolves back, they're bringing lynxes back, large predators and things like that. So we're learning to live with the environment. In the US, you have coyotes and things like that. So although there's a fear of nature, I think, that we need to get over, there are examples across the world we can learn from, and perhaps examples in like Bali, co-living with macaques and so on, which we can learn, and ways of thinking about what a lovely society we have where non-humans and humans are living together.
Thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Bertram.
Well, the other example that Professor mentioned or didn't mention is Singapore. They have the otters, right? And when the otters come around, I mean, it's just really delightful event. Everybody gathers around, everybody follows them to take pictures, really. So, I mean, it really, in a way, enhances the quality of life. I mean, there's always the flip side to it. The otters get into the condominium's koi pond and eat all the expensive species, you know, so that's a problem too. But yeah, it's like you said, it's how to live with them. But the main issue that you talked about or you asked about is how do you replicate, for instance, what BSD City is doing in a place like Bali? And it's very difficult. I mean, BSD City has a certain characteristic that may be the most important. It's controlled by one company. It has all this amalgamated land from many years of hard work. Remember, it's not overnight. This was over 40 years they got this land, right? So it's a big challenge, yeah. So I think it has to start at the city government level. There's no other way, I think, right? So, you know, there has to be some way to control the land. I mean, Singapore has evolved. I went to Singapore like almost 40 years ago, 30-something years ago, and I've seen it evolve over this time. And the central government, the URA, the city planning, has always had a certain amount of control, right? And I think that control was the key to the success, right? So really it has to have some kind of control to begin with, and I think there's just no way around it. I mean, the other example I always think about is the MRT in Jakarta, right? MRT is great, everybody loves it, but when you get to the stations, you have very little density, right? You have very little integrated development, right? And in order for that MRT to be successful over a long period, you need that. So you need to somehow have the authority to acquire, amalgamate the land, and then to redevelop it to take advantage of it for everybody's benefit. Yeah.
So moving to you, Mr. Marcus Young, do you want to chip in?
Yeah, I mean, this is always a matter of perspective and knowledge, of course. I don't know Indonesia very well, so I'm not really an expert. I've been there, and just to connect to Alex, the first speaker, from my perspective, experience over there, the biodiversity is incredible, and the issues or the urban context I've been dealing with in relation of increasement of biodiversity and integrate the non-humans into urban design is from my perspective much more challenging than the condition in Indonesia, how it appears to me. That's first an observation. Then regarding the gentleman with his question, Bali, I think from the water perspective, a major interest or challenge is rather to deal with sea level rise and the protection of those mangroves parks along the coastline in South Bali. This is something which is of big concern, and what can we do as designers to protect better these coastlines and to renaturate more and to increase mangrove parks again? This would be my comment here. Are these artificial sand dunes which need to be erected offshore, for example, to protect the existing wildlife? Yeah.
Add one more thing?
Yes, please.
I think the other thing about Bali and the example of Bali or anywhere else, I think all of this really starts with resource evaluation, right? I think, you know, we talk about natural resource, we talk about human resource, we talk about cultural heritage, everything. I mean, it starts there, and then from there you evaluate what the resources are. I mean, I've worked on projects where they wanted to build a new industrial park because they had land, but there's no human resource. So it didn't make sense, right? I mean, you're gonna have to ship everybody, your land is cheap, but you ship everybody in from all over the place, and then your cost automatically is now more than building in the city, right? So I think it has to go back to natural resources or resource evaluation, right? And you know, Bali, from the Bali perspective, of course, tourism is the main industry, right? So what's the tourism resources? Of course, it goes back to cultural heritage, natural heritage, right? And all those things. And then you decide we need to protect it because that's the resource, the asset. I spent 15 years working on tourism for Bintan. So we went through a lot of this process. Yeah.
Yeah, that first example is explain how that would happen if we see the planning practices as business as usual, without adding more context to the environment, to the social, to the peoples, etc. Okay, so Pak Aswin, does this answer your questions? Okay, so before we continue, please take note that we will have one left from the audience, and then we're moving to the question from the Zoom chat box. So we have an audience, Pak Oka, please.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my question is addressed actually to all of the speakers, yeah, but mostly for to Mr. Bertram. But it's still related to the Professor Lechner's speech. Yeah. We are facing now a dilemma decision to make sustainable development. The more population number, the more area we need to live. That's you know, this is the situation that we facing now. But the choice is either we build a vertical building or horizontal building. Each decision has a negative and positive effect. We know the vertical building is more expensive and more difficult, and you know, maybe we need more time to do it. But in Indonesia, this is the dilemma decision, yeah. And at the end, we choose that the horizontal building is easier to build, and we do it. Yeah. When we make a wider road or make a new road, then at the same time we reduce the open space and plantation and so on. And what's your opinion actually? In maybe yes, looking not only the positive side but negative side for each decision. Thank you.
Can I interrupt because I have similar questions? Well, I think it's a similar questions. I enjoyed the three presentations and connectivity of patches and pedestrian environment at the same time, water and architecture urbanism. And to me is the concept which is common to three presentations to me is the density. Because I'm from Seoul, which is one of the densest populated concentrated cities in the world. And my question is, are there any socially, culturally acceptable density in Indonesia? Because to allow coexisting pedestrian-oriented urban space and connectivity of the landscape, I think there was a certain density has to be achieved, right? So in Korea or in Hong Kong, in Tokyo, we try to reduce the floor area ratio. But to make these two principles coexisting, I think the urban morphology and building typology has to be addressed. So in order to reduce the floor area ratio, but at the same time, we have to increase the building coverage ratio. You know what I'm saying? So we have not just high, tall building and large green space, but it is a medium-rise building, but at the same time, we have a very steady environment. So my question is, any regulatory initiative in Indonesia to make the balance between PCL and FAL? This is first question. Second question, quick question. Will the self-driving car will help to make the pedestrian environments in Indonesia? You mean the self-driving cars? Yeah. Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you very much. Please, Mr. Bitram.
Okay. The issue about building vertical or building horizontal is an ongoing question that we face all the time. And honestly speaking, in my personal opinion, I think Indonesia hasn't seen the vertical model that is the right model yet, so nobody wants to go vertical, right? I mean, I keep hearing from the work that we do that there's no market for apartments. Nobody wants to live in apartments, right? And the question is it because the apartment is not good, or is it because the environment that the apartment is put in is not correct, right? So like what we're trying to do is we're trying to not create the apartment with 101 amenities, we're trying to create the ecosystem around with the 101 amenities and then put the apartment in there, which I think is what happens in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in Seoul, places like that, right? So I think my perception or my choice would be to try and get the right model for the community, and then hence the vertical development would be more attractive. The horizontal development takes up a lot of land, right? And it takes up more infrastructure. And if we look at the one slide I showed about the cost of suburban versus urban, the initial cost for the building may be low, the infrastructure costs will be higher, but the long-term operating costs will also be higher. So at the end of the day, will we get the end result, right? Then the question about building coverage ratio and all of that, Professor and I drove around BSD City last night, and he said this is like suburban America strip malls, right? Because we see the parking up to the property line, we see fences around the buildings, right? And that's a result of the local regulations not allowing zero setback, having large setbacks, right? And the large setbacks, I think, are a result of, I don't know what, but probably many years of continuing the same thing just because it's easier and it's safer, because in case the road needs to be widened, there's a setback and all that kind of stuff. But that results in no street life, right? We can't create the streets like I showed if there's a setback and parking goes in every setback, right? So definitely what we've done in BSD City is we've discussed with the local government about getting zero setbacks. And they've been very positive because central government is looking for mass transportation to be more viable, right? And the last mile is the most important thing in walking to and from the station. And if you're walking along a road that has cars parked all over it, or if you're walking along a road that has activities of F&B and other commercial, it's a whole different experience, right? So yes, I think exactly what you said is true. It needs to have greater site coverage, it needs to have urban edges, it needs to develop streets and things like that. Okay, self-driving, if you look at the last slide I showed, there was an autonomous vehicle in there, and we actually tested it once over here in BSD City for a short time. Whether it's going to change the way people perceive, I don't know, but what we're trying to do in the first urban area that we're trying to develop is we're trying to bring car sharing in. So people don't have to own a car themselves, but they can rent it for the day if they need to go on a far distance. But they also have the other choices of walking. They have the BSD Link, our bus service. They have the Kereta Api to get to Jakarta, right? So I think it's a combination of all of those, and maybe that's one of the factors, yeah.
So let me flip the question. So how can we maximize for biodiversity for non-humans? So we need to densify for non-humans too. So if you look at a lot of the green spaces that we see, most of the understory's cleared and it's been mowed. You know, the trees that are chosen, you know, are for architectural purposes so we can see through them. I think what we need is, like in our cities, we need dense areas of high biodiversity, you know, tall trees, and undergrowth, and on those tall trees we have epiphytes, we have a whole host of biodiversity, and we need this sort of multifunctional green landscapes, because I think especially, you know, as people are, I guess, getting used to green spaces, You know, it's a challenge to have those areas. But I think in the same way for non-humans, we need densification, and that will also maximize the green spaces and the sense of the green space. You know, like in Singapore, you hear birds tweeting and things like that. Much less so even in the green spaces in Indonesia, I think, because of the nature of the biodiversity. The green is green, but perhaps not high biodiversity and lacks that vertical structure. So I think we can use the same framing from our urban, you know, our grey spaces to the green spaces and think about that diversity, because it doesn't exist yet. So a short answer.
Okay, so, Mr. Yang, do you have insight to cover these issues?
Well, I only can comment back from my context. I mean, we in Australia, we have a similar issue. That's why Melbourne is a sprawling city. But we have a lot of space, and people and families want to live the Australian dream in detached houses. So that's why we've got these vast suburbs. So that's one thing. The other thing is in the recent 15 years, 20 years, there has been more and more densification in the inner suburbs. The CBD, the so-called Central Business District, which used to be for commercial use only up to the mid-80s, has a lot of high-rise buildings. It was a dead city. Only in the recent years, these ground floors were activated by getting parking underground. That's a cost factor, now cost issue. And this is why often the podiums in the towers in Melbourne, they accommodate parking. So in short, what I'm trying to say, for me, this comes down to good design. It's a design question. It's not about high rise against low rise. It's a question of how they are designed. Great example is in Singapore, the Pinnacle, for example, which probably everyone knows. That HBD development is massive, and you would have thought when it was designed through a competition, how that will work with that little India next door. But the actual practice shows that because of the good design, the response, that landscape meeting the city fabric and the accommodation of particular programs work super well. So for me, this is rather a question of design, but then there are distinct contexts which need to be looked very carefully into. Yeah.
Oh, yes, please.
So that issue about vertical or horizontal, I think maybe the question should go back to our colleague from Bali. Has Bali suffered because of the height limit, right? Because of the height limit, not higher than a coconut tree, it's sprawled all over the place, right? If the height limit was relaxed, would we have saved more of the environment, more of the paddies, more of the natural landscape? Yeah, so I think that's something definitely need to be considered.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. We have only that much time to cover such a wide-ranging topics. So please allow me to try to bring the thread of the discussion together. Yes, we have discussed about how important biodiversity in terms of reducing urban heat island. So it is important in enhancing interdisciplinary to work with in the design practice in research. In this context, such as ecological, biological, or the other expert that related to biodiversity to increase our products in design and research regarding to regenerative development. And then we have talked about how the livable development, livable approach, such as walkability, how to enhancing the urban lifestyle in the context of township project from Mr. Wong. And then we talk about how the regenerative in terms of management resourcement are covered to the context of livable and regenerative built environment. So at the end, we can conclude that, or at least allow me to conclude that when we talk about regenerative, we can say that regenerative development is like a sustainability on steroids, right? In terms of sustainability, we know that how we talk about how to preserve resources, how to preserve energy, etc. But in the regenerative development, we talk more than that. We talk about how we produce our energy, how we produce by ourselves in terms of the food, the shared water, the land, etc. So with that, I would like to close this seminar session. Thank you for all of our presenters today, and thank you to the audience to attending this session. And one more time, please give another round of applause to our speakers today. Thank you very much. I am Bima, and I'll see you around. Good afternoon.
We extend our gratitude to all our esteemed panelists for the insightful presentation and engaging discussion. And we would also like to extend our sincere appreciation to our moderator for skillfully guiding this session. And we would now like to invite the chairman of LIVAS 2025, Dr. Engineering I Gede Oka Sindu Pribadi, MSc MM, to present tokens of appreciation to our distinguished speakers and moderator. We kindly invite all speakers, the moderator, and the chairman to proceed for a group photo session. Mr. Kim and also Mr. Deprezan, May you join us to the front. Thank you very much, and kindly to return to your seats as we continue with the next agenda. And also, we would like to present a certificate for the online speakers. Mr. Marcus Young from Swinburne University of Technology, Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed with the partnership presentation segment, and this session will feature BSD City, who will take a few minutes to introduce their respective organization. Mrs. Jenny, please make your way to the front.
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu sekalian untuk waktu dan kesempatannya. Thank you very much for the very precious moment for me to have BSD City forward, and let me inform you about the progress of BSD City. Okay, let me proceed. Can I have the slide on? Okay, so we have a new tagline actually in BSD City, especially nowadays when we have BSD City, the progress of our BSD City, we call it as a BSD City always alive. In line with what Pak Betram already explained to us in front, that in BSD, sorry, I don't think it's, okay, so, okay, so in BSD City, as formerly introduced in 1980 something, actually BSD City already in here, but already informed or introduced as Kota Mandiri, right? And up to now, we would like to present as a one-stop solution to live, work, learn, and play. So when we open our eyes in the morning until we sleep at night, we have one-stop living actually in BSD City. That's what we introduce. And in the BSD City, located with the area, the full area is 6,000 hectares. What we have as a main developer and we introduce to our customers or stakeholders right now is we have 5 toll gates directly like landed directly in the BSD City, and also continue with 5 train stations. So this is the main infrastructure or the main unit selling point that we introduce to our stakeholders, because this is very important. Like the 5 toll gates what we have in here, we have from the east to the south that we have, east to the west, and then nowadays our progress or development more on the west area, while what the product that I will introduce is located. So in many informations that we have for BSD City, we call it as a major ecosystem. Why? Because when we have the tagline live, learn, work, and play, we have like 500,000 populations that already have in BSD City, and when we calculate, is about 40,000 more that we have houses built And also, what about the formal schools and also informal schools that we have, or educations? And we also like many offices, and especially like bank partners that we have in here. For example, like BCA, BCA have 2 towers developed in BSD City, include BNI, BRI, and also Bank Mandiri, etc. And we also have many areas for entertainment, or we call it as a play, like the Breeze, Aeon Mall, Isvara Mall, one of the new mall that we have in BSD, which is located in the west area. And we also being pointed as a spatial economic zone. Actually, 4 pillars that pointed to us in BSD City. First, for education, healthcare, digital, and also creative economy. But I believe for the main pillars that are pointed to BSD is first education and also healthcare, only in BSD City. That's why for the education itself, when we introduced in BSD, not only for formal education or formal schools that we have, but we also have non-formal schools. And then from the kindergarten up to the senior high. And another one, we also have higher education, like Monash University, our partner for the master degree, right? And then we also invite our international education, like you have in front, maybe before entering this building, entering this room, we invite Anglo-Chinese school. They developed in the west area, and next year they will starting the operation in the west area of BSD City. This is the Monash University that we have in the GOP 9. And then this is the Anglo-Chinese school in the West BSD. They will open their school starting next year. And then this year they are developing the area. Another one is Wellington College. Wellington College that we have is located in front of BSD. Like what you see, the round logo. Actually, the area is previously is our customer care building, but our customer care building already moved to another area. So this Wellington college is located. So when we are appointing as a Kota Mandiri, if we see from the 2008 until 2024, when we call as an investment area, the property is always up, so never less, because the property investment is on not only for 1 or 2 years, but we call it as many years. So when we calculate and analyze the price increment from starting 2008 up to last year, the increment is so incredible, right? So this is what we always inform to our stakeholders, especially in BSD City, and especially what Pak Bertram also explained, a lot of progress and development that we have been through in BSD City, and also the future development itself. So let me introduce one of the clusters that we have in Armon Residences, located in the West BSD area. Which one is the Armon? So we may see the yellow one is Armon Residence, yeah, very near to the Isvara Mall area. What Pak Bertram already explained us about the Green Belt Waterway. That's one of the main located that we informed to the Armon Residence as well. And around the Armon Residence, we also have many facilities already developed or even operated, like the school, Anglo-Chinese school, and also Genesis Global School. It's already open, but will be formally open for the operation starting next year. So Anglo-Chinese School and also Genesis Global School will be operated by next year. On the other hand, we also have Aeon Supermarket in the Isfara Mall nearby with the Grand Lucky and also the barn. And also our location is near with the West Central Business District with the very wide area, 372 hectares. It's gonna be commercial mixed use in there, right? And what I said about the toll area, the near toll gate is the 5th toll gate that we have actually already operated. We call gate toll Lego. And then our area is also near with our neighbor called Gading Serpong. So it's very near if we would like to see or to taste about the culinary. Okay. In the surroundings, Armon residence, we have many facilities near, like shopping mall or entertainment, office or venue, education itself, recreation, and also hospitals. So many facilities already nearby our residences in Armon. So this is what we introduce to our customers, and also Armon residents, one of the gold certificate for the Green Building Council Indonesia. So it's not only for the product itself, but also for the area in Armon residences. And this is the gate to the Armon residences. I think this is one of the destination that we have in the tour for this afternoon, yeah. And we built the landscape area for a noble living, and this is one of the first phase that we open for the sale with the various color, means that the legend is for the various type. The smallest one is type 8. The yellow one. The blue one is for type 9, and the red one is for type 10, the biggest one. So the Armon Residences area is about 14.5 hectares. So we just opened for the first phase. And the future development, this is the area that Pak Bertram introduced in front about the Greenbelt Waterway, which is nearby the Isfara and also across our residence. So when we entering the security gate, we introduce the Gracefully Park. So we we developed our landscape very beautiful, and then we call it as the soul of the Armon. We don't have any facilities like clubhouse, but we maintain the landscape like this one. So flower tunnel, and then we have a community pavilion, also lawn playground. So this is very safe and very interested for children. Not only playing gadget inside, but we also encourage our children to play outside. And then we have maze garden. We manage a very beautiful one, botanic garden, and also fountain inside in the area. And we also have flowers of the Armon. We have 7 various flowers inside. So we manage the landscape as beautiful as we can, because this is one of the selling point that we have. Not only people or the residents not only live in the house, but they can do the exercise like walking around the Armon area, because we also build the pedestrian for the residents. So this is one of the type show units that we built, and this is for type 9 actually, yeah. So the real photos for the master bedroom and ensuite master bedroom, and also this is master bedroom as well. So this is the floor plan, yeah. all the Armon residents, we have 3 floors inside, and then each floors we have 1 bedroom, but for the 3rd floor as a main area or private area, we located the master bedroom and another bedroom for the kids. So this is the show units that we will enter later on. We will go here and you may see, this is one of the favorite type nowadays in BSD. So we have Armon, but the biggest one, we call it Tresor. Yeah, so we call it Armon as the mini Tresor. Yes, very beautiful one. Okay, this is the located of the canal or green belt actually. So in front, this is not the real photo, but we just want to inform that the block that we open for sale for type 9 is a very beautiful view because nearby or across the product, there's a green belt, and then quite far away, even though we may see the street, but the row of the street very far away, but very green as well. And this is the located of the block that we open for sale, type 9. It's very beautiful one because the view is also near the green belt waterway. So I think that's the introduction of the Armon residents and also a bit of the progress of BSD City. Thank you very much for the time, and I hope that you can enjoy as well to the Armon residents for the BSD City tour. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jenny, for the presentation, and we truly appreciate for the support from Senar Maslen. Ladies and gentlemen, for BSD City Tour, we will separate into several groups, so please to find your name as it display on the screen. Okay. We'll take a minute for the name to display on the screen, and I will announce for the lunch break. So we now break for the lunch and prayer. We kindly invite to enjoy the meal provided and return to the main hall by 1 p.m. Once again, return to the main hall by 1 p.m. as we prepare for the next agenda. But to note that we are not allowed to eat in this hall or in this room, so you may enjoy your meal outside the hall. There's a lobby area to eat. Outside for the hall, you can turn left, and then there's a lobby and sofa, so you can enjoy your meal there. So I want to announce again that we return to the main hall at 1 p.m. as we prepare for the next agenda. Thank you and enjoy your lunch. Baik Bapak Ibu dan hadirin sekalian, berikut pembagian kelompok untuk BSD City Tour nanti. Yang ditampilkan yang pertama adalah kelompok 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back and please have a seat as we move to the next agenda. We now begin the Best Day City Tour, where participants will have the opportunity to explore several landmark developments. This segment will be led by Mr. Bertram from Best Day City team. Please come forward.
Tour, I understand we have 2 buses, but what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of walking in between. So the first part we're going to walk. Can we have the slide, the overall? Next one. Okay, so we're over here right now, right? So the first part of the tour, we're going to walk through the Green Office Park, through the breeze, along our waterway, Chisadani River Greenbelt area, up until our biomedical campus, and we'll see our biomedical campus. I'm not sure, is somebody going to explain to us at the biomedical campus? If not, we'll just take a quick look over there, and then we'll get on the bus, and then we'll drive to the Chisauk station, where our intermodal development is, which includes our bus terminal, Pasar Modern, as well as the train station, the Kereta Api. From there, we'll take the bus up to the Cubig area, and we'll just go inside and we'll have a quick look at the urban plaza at the Cubig, which I talked a little bit about this morning. And then after that, we'll get on the bus again, and we'll go to the Ardmont area, which is up here, which is where the my colleague this morning kind of explained about the housing. So you can get a chance to see one of the actual housing units that we actually sell. And then we'll come down back to the East Vara area over here, and we'll get out of the bus there, and we'll see the East Vara, and we'll see the Waterway Greenbelt, our eco-urban park over there. And then that will be the end of our tour. And then we'll get back on the bus. When we get back on the bus, we'll probably come through this route here, back through here. And this route over here, you'll see our Masjid Raya under construction. And right next to it, we have a Catholic church. So I think it's a kind of another nice thing to see along the way. So is there any questions? If not, does somebody want to explain how the groups work?
Okay, thank you, Pak Bertram. So maybe together with Pak Bertram's team, our team from the committee will also accompany the groups. So I would like to ask to come forward for the first group, Pak Aklis, maybe can come forward. Yeah. Yes, bring the flag thingy. Yes, so in the tour, the first group you can see the flag so that you won't get lost, okay? And then for the second group is Pak Ardila Jeffrey, Pak Jeffrey. Yes, second group. And for the third group, Pak Arif. And for the fourth group is Pak Sabto. Yeah, okay. And for the first group will be accompanied with the Sinar Masland team with Pak Iqbal. Yeah. And then the second group is Mbak Catherine. Yeah. Benar nggak? And then the third group is Pak Bertram, yeah. Pak Bertram will be on the third group. Okay, so second group will be with Bu Meka, third group Pak Bertram, and the fourth group Mbak Catherine. And then so for the bus, group 1 and 2 will be in the first bus, bus 1, number 1. You can see in the bus, there's a number 1 in front of the bus. And for the group 3 and 4 will join in the second bus or bus 2. Yeah, number 2 on the bus. Yeah. Okay. So I think if everyone already know, yeah, we will show again the list of the participants in group 1. Yes. And then group 2. Group 2. Mana? Yeah, group 1, group 2, this one. And then group 3. Yeah. 3. Yeah. Kok beda sih? Oh, okay. Okay, 2 seconds, sorry. Technical issue. Okay, so okay, just follow the one in the registration table. Yeah, so there's a bit of a mix in the file. So just follow the one in the registration table, and that's still the same with the one we show before lunch break. Okay, okay. So without wasting any more time, we will now go. We gathered where? Pak Iqbal gather. So to the side door, yeah. So we go to the side door now. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.